The flash of the camera still burned behind my eyelids as I packed my equipment into the worn leather bag. 3 a.m. shoots paid double, but hauling 30 pounds of camera gear through Chicago's empty streets made every muscle in my back scream in protest. The wedding photos I just finished would feed me for the next 2 weeks, assuming the bride's father actually paid his invoice this time. My camera strap dug into my shoulder as I turned down the alley shortcut to the parking garage. The familiar weight of my Canon 5D Mark IV, my most prized possession bought with 3 months of saved tips, bounced against my hip with each step. Then the world exploded. Gunshots cracked through the night air like thunder, echoing off the brick walls. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness ahead of me in rapid succession. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pressed myself against the cold wall, my expensive equipment suddenly feeling like an anchor dragging me down. A man stumbled out of the shadows, one hand pressed against his side, dark liquid seeping between his fingers. Even in the dim streetlight, I could see the expensive cut of his suit, the way it hung perfectly on his broad shoulders despite being torn and bloodstained. He collapsed to his knees on the wet concrete. Without thinking, I dropped my camera bag and threw myself over him as another round of bullets sprayed the wall where he'd been standing. My body covered his as chips of brick rained down on us. His back was solid muscle beneath my chest, and I could smell expensive cologne mixed with copper and gunpowder. "Stay down," I whispered against his ear, my voice shaking. His hand came up to cover mine where I was gripping his jacket. His skin was surprisingly warm, calloused despite the obvious wealth displayed in his clothing. The gunfire stopped. Footsteps echoed in the distance, growing fainter. Car doors slammed. An engine roared to life and tires squealed against asphalt. We lay there in silence for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. I could feel his breathing, steady and controlled despite the blood loss. Finally, he shifted beneath me and I started to pull away. His other hand caught my wrist, holding me in place. "Wait," he said, his voice a low rumble that I felt in my chest. There was an accent there, slight but unmistakable. Italian, maybe. He turned his head toward me and I got my first real look at his face. Strong jaw covered in dark stubble. High cheekbones, eyes so dark they looked black in the streetlight. He was beautiful in a dangerous way that made my mouth go dry. "You just saved the wrong mafia boss," he whispered. My blood turned to ice. I tried to pull away, but his grip on my wrist tightened, not painful but firm. "What?" The word came out as barely a breath. "My name is Dante Romano," he said, watching my face carefully. "And you, Bella, just became the most wanted woman in Chicago." I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name, even if they pretended not to. The Romano family controlled everything from the docks to the downtown casinos. They were the reason normal people like me crossed the street when we saw expensive black cars with tinted windows. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely audible. "I was just trying to help." He smiled then, and it transformed his entire face. It was gentle, almost tender, completely at odds with everything I'd ever heard about the Romano family. "I know, cara mia." That's exactly the problem. With his free hand, he reached into his jacket. I tensed, expecting a weapon, but he pulled out a cell phone instead. The screen was cracked, but still functional. "Marco?" he said when someone answered. His voice had changed completely, becoming cold and commanding. "SD, I'm alive." "No, they didn't finish the job." "Bring the car to the alley behind 7th Street. And Marco? Bring extra protection." "I have a civilian." He ended the call and looked back at me. His eyes had softened again, but I could see something else there now. Calculation. Planning. "What's your name?" He asked. "Sarah," I whispered. "Sarah." He repeated it like he was tasting it. "Do you have family, Sarah? People who depend on you?" I thought of my empty apartment, my overdue rent notice, my business that barely kept me afloat. "No, just me." Something flickered in his expression. "Good. That makes this easier." "Makes what easier?" "Keeping you alive." The sound of approaching vehicles made him tense beneath me. Multiple engines, moving fast. My heart started racing again. "Are they coming back?" I asked. "No." His hand moved to my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. "These are mine." 3 black SUVs pulled into the alley, their headlights blinding me. Men in dark suits emerged, moving with military precision. One of them jogged over to us, and I noticed the way his eyes widened when he saw Dante's condition. Boss, are you... I'm fine, Marco. Dante's hand was still on my cheek, his thumb still moving in gentle circles. But we need to move, no? Strong hands helped pull us both to our feet. I stumbled, my legs shaky, and Dante caught my elbow. Even wounded, he was steady as a rock. My equipment, I said, looking back at my abandoned camera bag. Marco, Dante said without looking away from me. The bag, one of his men immediately retrieved it, handling it with surprising care. The camera's probably broken, I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. It had taken me 2 years to afford that camera. Without it, I couldn't work. We'll replace it, Dante said simply. You can't just replace a Canon 5D Mark IV. They cost $8,000. He looked at me like I'd said something amusing. Bella, I spent more than that on ties. One of his men opened the rear door of the middle SUV. The interior was all black leather and soft lighting, more luxurious than any car I'd ever been in. Get in, Dante said. It wasn't a request. I can't. I have to get home. I have clients tomorrow. Sarah. His voice was gentle but firm. Look at me. I did and saw something that made my stomach drop. Pity. You can't go home. Not now. Probably not ever. The Torino family saw you save me. They know your face. By tomorrow morning, they'll know everything about you, where you live, where you work, where you buy your coffee. But I didn't do anything wrong. You saved my life. In their world, that makes you the enemy. The reality of what he was saying hit me like a physical blow. My apartment, my business, my entire life, all gone because I tried to help a stranger. I can't just disappear, I said, panic rising in my chest. I have a lease, responsibilities. Marco will handle all of that, Dante said. Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe. I looked around the alley, at the blood on the concrete, at the bullet holes in the brick wall, at the men in expensive suits who looked like they could kill someone without blinking. What if I refuse? Dante's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Then you'll be dead before sunrise. The Torinos don't leave loose ends, Sarah, ever. The weight of his words settled over me like a blanket. I thought about my small apartment with its broken air conditioner and stack of unpaid bills. About my struggling photography business that barely paid for groceries. About how no one would even notice I was gone for at least a week. How do I know you won't kill me yourself? I asked. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. His hand came up to cut my face again, and I should have been terrified, but something in his touch made me feel safer instead of threatened. Because, Karamia, you just became the most important person in my world. Before I could ask what that meant, he guided me toward the SUV. I slid across the leather seat, my camera bag clutched in my lap like a lifeline. Dante sat beside me, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine. Drive, he told the man in the front seat. As we pulled out of the alley, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the tinted window. My dark hair was messed up, my jacket torn at the shoulder. There was blood on my hands, his blood, and my eyes looked wild and frightened. I looked like someone whose life had just been turned upside down. Because it had. Where are we going? I asked as the city lights blurred past. Somewhere safe, Dante said. He was pressing a cloth to the wound in his side, but his color was better now. My home. Your home? Don't worry, Bella. You'll be comfortable there. Comfortable. Like I was going on vacation instead of being kidnapped by the mafia. This is insane, I said, more to myself than to him. SD, it is. His accent was stronger now, maybe because he was tired or in pain. But sometimes insane is the only option. I stared out at the city passing by, at the life I was leaving behind. Part of me wanted to demand that they stop the car, let me out, let me take my chances with the Torinos. But the rational part of my brain knew that Dante was right. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I don't even know you, I said. You know enough. His hand found mine in the darkness of the car, his fingers intertwining with mine. You know I was worth saving. The simple statement made my chest tight. I had known somehow. In that split second when I saw him fall, I hadn't thought about consequences or danger. I'd just known that I couldn't let him die. Are you really a mafia boss? I asked. Does it matter now? I guess not. We drove in silence after that, his hand warm and steady in mine. I watched Chicago disappear behind us, replaced by suburban neighborhoods and eventually by trees and open spaces. The Romano family apparently lived well outside the city. How bad are you hurt? I asked, noticing the way he was favoring his left side. I've had worse. That's not an answer. He looked at me and I caught a glimpse of surprise in his expression. The bullet grazed my ribs. Painful but not serious. You need medical attention. I have a doctor on call. Of course he did. Probably one who didn't ask questions about gunshot wounds. The SUV turned through ornate iron gates, and I got my first look at Dante Romano's home. It was massive, a Mediterranean-style mansion with warm stone walls and arched windows glowing with soft light. Gardens stretched out on either side of the curved driveway, perfectly manicured even in the darkness. This is where you live? I asked. One of the places. The car stopped in front of a grand entrance with heavy wooden doors. More men in suits were waiting, and I realized this wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. Dante got out first, moving carefully, and then offered me his hand. I took it without thinking, letting him help me from the car. Welcome to Casa Romano, he said. The foyer was breathtaking, marble floors, a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than my entire year's income, artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything spoke of old money and quiet power. A woman appeared from a side hallway, elegant and silver-haired, wearing a silk robe despite the late hour. Dante, she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Grazie a Dio, you're safe. Nona, he said, kissing both her cheeks. This is Sarah. She saved my life tonight. The woman's sharp eyes took in my disheveled appearance, the blood on my clothes, the camera bag clutched in my hands. But when she looked at my face, her expression softened. Then she is welcome in our home, she said. I am Elena Romano. Sarah Matthews, I said, surprised by my own manners in the face of everything that had happened. You look exhausted, child. Come, let me show you to a room. Nona, Dante said, have Dr. Castellano come look at her. Make sure she wasn't hurt. I'm fine, I protested. Humor me, he said, and there was something in his tone that brooked no argument. Elena Romano led me up a sweeping staircase to a bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens, and everything was decorated in soft blues and creams that made me feel unexpectedly peaceful. There are clothes in the closet, Elena said. They should fit you well enough for tonight. We'll arrange for more tomorrow. I can't stay here, I said, even though part of me was already falling in love with the luxury surrounding me. I have a life to get back to. Elena's expression was kind but sad. My grandson explained the situation. Some of it. Then you know that life is gone, at least for now. She sat on the edge of the massive bed, patting the space beside her. Come, sit with me. I did, setting my camera bag carefully on the floor. Dante has never brought a woman to this house, Elena said. In 35 years, you're the first. And not or not, I just helped him. Say, I know. And that tells me everything I need to know about your character. She took my hands in hers. You have a good heart, Sarah Matthews. That is rare in our world. Our world. As if I was already part of it. I don't belong here, I said. Perhaps. But you are here, and you are under the protection of the Romano family. That is not something we take lightly. A knock on the door interrupted us. Elena called for them to enter, and an elderly man with a kind face and a medical bag stepped in. Dr. Castellano, Elena said. This is Sarah. The doctor was gentle and efficient, checking for injuries I didn't even know I might have. He cleaned the scrapes on my hands from when I'd hit the concrete, applied antiseptic that stung, and declared me physically unharmed. Shock, he told Elena after examining me. She needs rest and quiet. Perhaps something mild to help her sleep. No drugs, I said quickly. I need to think clearly. Dr. Castellano nodded approvingly. Smart girl. Call me if she needs anything. After he left, Elena showed me how to work the shower and the attached bathroom. It had more settings than my car and left me alone with promises that we'd talk more in the morning. I stood under the hot water for a long time, watching Dante's blood swirl down the drain and trying to process what had happened. 6 hours ago, I'd been a struggling photographer worried about rent money. Now I was apparently under the protection of Chicago's most dangerous crime family. The clothes Elena had mentioned were hanging in the walk-in closet, designer pieces in my exact size, which should have been creepy but somehow felt thoughtful instead. I chose a simple silk nightgown and crawled into the enormous bed, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard gunshots and felt Dante's blood on my hands. I kept thinking about his voice when he'd said I was the most important person in his world. What had he meant by that? A soft knock made me sit up. "Come in." Dante stood in the doorway and my breath caught. He'd changed into dark jeans and a white t-shirt, casual clothes that somehow made him look even more dangerous than the expensive suit had. His side was bandaged. I could see the white gauze through the thin cotton of his shirt. "I wanted to check on you," he said. "Make sure you had everything you needed." "I'm fine." It was a lie and we both knew it. He stepped into the room but didn't come closer. "I know this is overwhelming." "Overwhelming?" I almost laughed. "That's one word for it. You're angry." "I'm terrified," I corrected. "I'm confused. I'm angry." "I'm a lot of things." He nodded as if he'd expected that. "Ask me whatever you want to know." "Are you really going to kill people?" The blunt question seemed to surprise him. "If they threaten what's mine, yes. What's yours?" His eyes met mine across the room. "You are." My heart started racing again. "You don't own me." "No," he agreed. "But you're under my protection now, which means anyone who hurts you answers to me." "In my world, that's the same thing. I didn't ask for your protection." "You didn't have to. You gave me something more valuable than my own life when you shielded me from those bullets. Now I owe you a debt that can't be repaid." "I don't want payment. I just want my life back." He was quiet for a long moment and I saw something that looked like pain flicker across his features. "That life was never really safe," he said finally. "You were struggling, alone, vulnerable. At least here, you'll never have to worry about money or security again." "How do you know about my life?" "Because I make it my business to know everything about people who matter to me." The casual admission that he'd somehow investigated me in the few hours since the shooting should have been terrifying. Instead, it made me feel oddly cared for. "I mattered to you?" I asked. "More than you know." He moved closer then, just a few steps, but I could feel the energy shift in the room. He was magnetic in a way that made it hard to think clearly. "Why?" I asked. "You don't even know me. I know you're brave enough to throw yourself between a stranger and a gun. I know you're talented enough to make a living doing something you love, even when it's difficult. I know you're beautiful enough to take my breath away." My cheeks heated at the compliment. "You can't keep me here forever." "I don't want to keep you here," he said. "I want you to want to stay." The honesty in his voice made my chest tight. "That's not going to happen. We'll see." He moved toward the door, but I called after him. "Dante?" He turned back. "Thank you," I said, "for protecting me, even if I didn't ask for it." His smile was soft, genuine. "Get some sleep, Bella. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." After he left, I lay in the darkness staring at the ceiling. Outside, I could hear the soft sounds of men moving around the property, keeping watch. Protecting me from dangers I still couldn't fully understand. Part of me wanted to hate this, to rage against the loss of my independence and choice. But another part of me, a part I didn't want to acknowledge, felt safer than I had in years. For the first time since my parents died in a car crash when I was 22, someone was taking care of me. Someone powerful enough to actually keep the world at bay. It was seductive in a way that scared me more than the gunman had. I must have finally fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through the French doors. I could smell coffee and something that might have been fresh bread. A soft knock on the door was followed by Elena's voice. "Sarah? Are you awake?" "Come in," I called, sitting up and pulling the silk robe she'd left for me around my shoulders. Elena entered carrying a tray laden with food, eggs, pastries, fruit, and a pot of coffee that smelled like heaven. "Buongiorno," she said, setting the tray on the small table by the balcony doors. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I expected to," I admitted. "Good. Dante had to leave early this morning, business, but he wanted me to make sure you were comfortable." "Business." I wondered if that was a euphemism for violence. "Where did he go?" I asked. "To deal with the people who tried to kill him last night." Elena's voice was matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather. "They won't be a problem anymore." A chill ran down my spine. "What does that mean?" "It means you're safe, child. That's all you need to know." I wanted to ask more questions, but something in Elena's tone told me I wouldn't get answers. Instead, I focused on the food, realizing I was starving. "This is incredible," I said after tasting what turned out to be the most perfect eggs Benedict I'd ever had. "Our cook is very talented." "You'll meet her later." "Elena," I said carefully, "how long am I going to be here?" "That depends on many things. How long the threat against you lasts. How quickly Dante can neutralize his enemies. How you feel about staying. I can't just abandon my entire life." "What life?" The question was gentle but pointed. "Dante told me about your situation. You were barely surviving, working constantly just to pay rent on a tiny apartment, struggling to build a business in a field dominated by men with more resources." It hurt to hear my life summarized so starkly, but she wasn't wrong. "Here," Elena continued, "you could have anything you wanted. A studio for your photography, the best equipment money can buy, connections to clients who would pay you more for one session than you used to make in a month. In exchange for what? For allowing my grandson to care for you." The way she said it made it sound so simple, so reasonable. But nothing about this was simple. "I need to think," I said. "Of course. Take all the time you need. In the meantime, let me show you the house." The tour that followed was overwhelming. The Romano mansion had everything: a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a formal dining room that could seat 20, a kitchen that belonged in a 5-star restaurant, a gym, a pool, even a movie theater. But it was the room Elena showed me last that took my breath away. "Dante had this prepared for you last night," she said, opening the door to what had clearly been converted into a photographer's dream studio. Professional lighting equipment, backdrops, a computer setup with editing software, and sitting on the central table like a crown jewel, a brand new Canon 5D Mark IV with a complete set of lenses. "He couldn't have done this overnight," I said, running my fingers over the camera with something close to reverence. "The equipment was delivered at 6 this morning," Elena said. "But you're right, this room has been empty for years. Dante had his people working all night to convert it. Why would he do this?" "Because he wants you to be happy here." I picked up the camera, feeling its familiar weight in my hands. It was perfect, exactly what I would have chosen for myself if money had been no object. "He's trying to buy me," I said. "Is he succeeding?" I wanted to say no to maintain my independence and moral high ground. But the truth was, holding that camera made me feel more like myself than I had since the shooting. "I don't know," I admitted. "That's honest, at least." We were interrupted by the sound of vehicles in the driveway. Elena glanced out the window and smiled. "Dante's home," she said. "Why don't you go down and thank him yourself?" I found him in what Elena called his office, standing behind a massive desk and speaking rapid Italian into his phone. He looked up when I entered, and something in his expression softened. "Ti richiamo," he said into the phone and hung up. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Confused," I said honestly. "The studio is incredible. Do you like it?" "It's perfect." Too perfect. He came around the desk to lean against it, crossing his arms over his chest. The movement made him wince slightly, and I found myself stepping closer. "You're hurt," I said. "It's nothing. Let me see." "Sarah, you saved my life last night," I said, throwing his own words back at him. "Let me look at your bandages." He stared at me for a moment, then slowly lifted the edge of his t-shirt. The bandages were clean and white, but I could see where blood had seeped through in a few spots. "You should be resting," I said. "I had things to handle. The people who shot you. They won't bother us again." The casual way he said it made my stomach clench. "What did you do to them?" "What I had to do." I met his eyes, seeing something dark and final there. "You killed them." "Sidi?" The simple admission should have sent me running. Instead, I felt a complex mix of emotions I don't want to examine too closely. Relief that they couldn't hurt him or me again, gratitude for his protection. And something else, something that felt disturbingly like satisfaction. "Does that bother you?" he asked, watching my face carefully. "It should," I said. "But it doesn't." "I don't know what's wrong with me," I whispered. His hand came up to cut my cheek, thumb brushing over my skin in that gentle way that was becoming familiar. "Nothing is wrong with you, cara mia. You're just learning that the world isn't as simple as you thought it was. I was a normal person yesterday. You were never normal. Sarah, normal people don't throw themselves in front of bullets for strangers. Normal people don't fall for mafia bosses. Either. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Is that what you're doing? He asked softly. Falling for me? I wanted to deny it, to maintain some distance and dignity. But standing there in his office with his hand warm against my face and his dark eyes focused entirely on me, I couldn't lie. I think so, I said. And it terrifies me. Good, he said. It terrifies me too. Why good? Because it means this matters. To both of us. He leaned closer and I thought he might kiss me. But instead, he rested his forehead against mine and we stood there breathing the same air. I want to show you something, he said finally. He led me through the house to a room I hadn't seen on Elena's tour. It was smaller and more personal than the others, with comfortable leather furniture and walls lined with photographs. These are beautiful, I said, studying the black and white images. They were clearly professional quality, portraits and landscapes that showed real artistic vision. My mother took them, Dante said. She was a photographer like you. I looked at him in surprise. Was? She died when I was 15, cancer. I'm sorry. She would have liked you, he said. She would have loved your work. I studied the photographs more carefully, seeing the skill and passion in every frame. She was incredibly talented. She wanted to be an artist, but she married my father instead. Became part of this life. His voice was quiet, thoughtful. She always said she wished she'd been brave enough to choose her art over security. Is that what you think I should do? I think you should choose what makes you happy. And if what makes me happy conflicts with what's safe? He turned to look at me then, and I saw vulnerability in his eyes that I hadn't expected. Then we'll figure out how to make it work, he said. The conviction in his voice made something shift inside my chest. This wasn't just about protection anymore, or even attraction. This was about possibility. Dante, I said carefully, what exactly are you offering me? Everything, he said simply. A life where you never have to worry about money or safety or anything except doing the work you love. A partner who would die before letting anyone hurt you. A family who will accept you as one of their own. And in exchange, you let me love you. The simple statement hit me like a physical blow. You don't love me. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're brave and talented and beautiful. I know you have a good heart and strong principles. I know that holding you in that alley last night felt like coming home. That's not love, that's gratitude. Is it? He stepped closer and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Then why does the thought of you leaving make me want to tear the city apart? Why did I spend half the night staring at the ceiling thinking about the way you felt in my arms? Why does looking at you make me want to be a better man? I stared at him, seeing the sincerity in his expression. Dante ... double quotes. I'm not asking you to love me back, he said. Not yet, I'm just asking you to give this a chance. Give us a chance. What if I can't? What if I try and realize I'm not cut out for this world? Then I'll make sure you're safe and free to go wherever you want. You'd really let me leave? Something flickered in his eyes, but his voice was steady. If that's what you truly wanted, yes, I believed him, which was terrifying in its own way. It meant this choice was really mine to make. I need time, I said. You have it, and I need to understand what I'm really choosing. Your world, your business. I need to know what that actually means. He studied my face for a long moment. Are you sure? Once you know, you can't unknow. I'm sure. He nodded slowly. Then tomorrow I'll show you everything. That night at dinner, I met more of Dante's family. His cousin Marco, who I recognized as the man who had retrieved my camera bag. His uncle Sal, who looked like he could bench press a car but spoke to Elena with gentle affection. Various other cousins and associates who treated me with a respect that felt both protective and evaluating. The conversation was mostly in English for my benefit, but occasionally they'd slip into rapid Italian when discussing business matters. I caught enough words to understand they were talking about territories and shipments and people who owed them money. Sarah's a photographer, Elena told the table. Dante set up a studio for her. What kind of photography? Asked Marco. Mostly portraits and events, I said. Weddings, family sessions, some commercial work. You any good? This from Sal, whose blunt question made several people at the table tense. I like to think so. Show me. I looked around the table uncertainly, then pulled out my phone. I'd managed to save a few of my favorite shots to cloud storage, and I scrolled through them until I found one I was particularly proud of, a wedding photo where I caught the exact moment the bride first saw her dress in the mirror. Sal studied the image, his expression serious. Then he passed the phone around the table. I watched their faces as they looked at my work, seeing surprise and approval. "This is good," Sal said finally. "Real good. Thank you. You ever take pictures of people who don't want their pictures taken?" The question was loaded with meaning I didn't fully understand, but I answered honestly. "No, I've always focused on people who hired me willingly." "Good," said Marco. "That's good." After dinner, Dante walked with me through the gardens behind the house. The night air was cool and filled with the scent of jasmine and roses. "They like you," he said. "They're evaluating me. Same thing in this family." We sat on a stone bench beside a fountain that sparkled in the moonlight. It was beautiful and peaceful, and I could almost forget that we were surrounded by armed guards. "Are you having second thoughts?" Dante asked. "Constantly," I admitted. "But I'm still here. Why?" I considered the question seriously. "Because for the first time in years, I'm not worried about paying rent or finding my next client or whether I'll be able to eat if I don't book a job this week. Because everyone in that house treated me like I belonged there. Because you look at me like I'm something precious. You are something precious. And because," I continued, ignoring the way his words made my heart race, "I think I'm falling in love with you, despite every rational thought in my head telling me it's a terrible idea." He was quiet for a long moment, and I started to worry I'd said too much too soon. "It is a terrible idea," he said finally. "Thanks for the reassurance." "Sarah," he turned on the bench to face me fully. "I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. I've hurt people, killed people, made decisions that normal people would find unforgivable. But with you, I want to be better. I want to be the kind of man who deserves someone like you. Someone like me. Pure, good, innocent." I almost laughed. "Dante, I'm not innocent. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, not like mine." "No," I agreed. "But maybe that's not what matters. Maybe what matters is who we are when we're together." He reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers in the moonlight. "Tomorrow," he said, "I'll show you the worst of what I am. If you can accept that, then maybe we have a chance. And if I can't, then at least we'll both know where we stand." He walked me back to my room, pausing outside the door. "Dante?" I said as he turned to go. "Esty? Thank you for being honest with me. About everything. You deserve honesty. So do you." I took a breath, gathering courage. "I'm scared of your world and what it might become. But I'm more scared of losing you before I really get to know you." His smile was soft and genuine and full of hope. "Bu not bella. Good night." I watched him walk away, then went into my room and lay awake for a long time thinking about choices and consequences and the way he'd said my name like it was something sacred. Tomorrow would bring revelations that might change everything, but tonight I was exactly where I wanted to be. The next morning came too soon and not soon enough. I'd barely slept, my mind racing with questions about what Dante was going to show me. Over breakfast, which Elena served in the sunroom overlooking the gardens, I tried to prepare myself for whatever was coming. "You're nervous," Elena observed. "Terrified," I corrected. "Dante is a good man, Sarah. Different from other men, perhaps, but good in the ways that matter." "How can you say that?" "He kills people. To protect his family. To protect what matters to him." She poured more coffee into my cup. "In our world, sometimes violence is the only language that's understood. I don't know if I can live in a world like that." "Then, you'll have to decide if Dante is worth learning." Before I could respond, the man himself appeared in the doorway. He was dressed in a dark suit again, looking every inch the powerful businessman except for the hardness in his eyes that reminded me exactly what kind of business he was in. "Are you ready?" he asked. No, I thought. But I said yes. The drive into the city was quiet. Dante sat beside me in the back of the SUV, his hand resting on his thigh close enough to mine that I could feel the warmth of his skin through the fabric of our clothes. Marco drove while another man I didn't recognize sat in the passenger seat. "Where are we going?" I asked as we entered Chicago's downtown area. "My office," Dante said. The legitimate one. We pulled up in front of a gleaming skyscraper in the financial district. A discreet bronze plaque near the entrance read Romano Holdings. This is yours? I asked. My family's. We have interests in construction, real estate, shipping, restaurants. He helped me out of the car. All completely legal. And the illegal parts? Those you'll see later. The elevator ride to the top floor was smooth and silent. Dante's legitimate office was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Expensive furniture, artwork that looked original and priceless. This is beautiful, I said, moving to the windows to look out at the city. It's a front, Dante said bluntly. A very expensive, very convincing front, but still just a facade. For what? The real business happens downstairs. In the basement levels that don't appear on any building plans. He pressed a button hidden behind one of the bookshelves, and a section of wall slid away to reveal an elevator I hadn't known existed. Second chance to change your mind, he said as the doors opened. I'm not changing my mind. Then welcome to my real world. The elevator descended much further than should have been possible given the building's location. When the doors opened, we stepped into what looked like a military command center. Multiple screens showed surveillance feeds from around the city. Men in expensive suits sat at desks covered with computers and communication equipment. This is our operations center, Dante explained. We monitor our territories, track our shipments, coordinate with our people in other cities. What kind of shipments? Weapons, mostly. Some drugs, but we're getting out of that business. Too much heat from the feds. He said it so casually, as if he were discussing the weather. I felt a chill run down my spine as the reality of what I was seeing sank in. You're arms dealers, among other things. One of the men at the computers looked up as we passed. Boss, we've got movement from the Torino family. Looks like they're trying to move in on our territory near the docks. Handle it, Dante said without stopping. What does handle it mean? I asked as we walked deeper into the complex. It means they'll be reminded that crossing the Romano family has consequences. Violent consequences? If necessary. We passed several more rooms, an armory that made my knees weak, a communications center that looked like it belonged in the Pentagon, and finally a conference room where a meeting was already in progress. 6 men in expensive suits sat around a polished table and they all stood when Dante entered. The deference was immediate and absolute. Gentlemen, Dante said, this is Sarah. She's under my personal protection. I saw recognition flicker across several faces. They knew who. I was what I'd done. The woman who'd saved their boss's life. The Torino situation? Dante asked, taking the seat at the head of the table. Escalating, said one of the men. They hit 2 of our runners last night, made a play for the warehouse on 5th Street. Response? We took out their lieutenant and torched one of their gambling operations. Dante nodded approvingly. And the runners? Both survived, but they're in the hospital. See that their families are taken care of. Medical bills, lost wages, everything. I listened to this discussion of violence and retaliation with growing horror and fascination. These men were talking about people's lives like chess pieces, but Dante's immediate concern for his wounded men showed a loyalty and care that didn't fit my preconceptions about organized crime. There's something else, another man said. The feds have been asking questions about our shipping operations. We may have a leak, Dante's expression hardened. Find it, quietly. And when we do, you know what to do. The meeting continued for another hour, covering everything from loan collections to police bribes to expansion into new territories. I sat in a chair against the wall, mostly forgotten, listening to Dante command an empire with quiet authority. When it was over and the men had filed out, Dante turned to me. Questions? He asked. About 1 million. Start with the most important one. Do you enjoy it? The violence? He was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. No, he said finally. But I'm good at it, and it's necessary. In this world, weakness is death. For me, for my family, for everyone who depends on us. How many people have you killed? Do you really want to know? I thought about it, then shook my head. Not the number. But I need to understand, are they all people who deserved it? Deserved is a complex word. Were they all threats to my family or my business? Yes. Were they all given chances to back down? Most of them. And the ones who weren't? Were about to hurt innocent people, I believed him. which was either a sign that I was developing good judgment or that I was falling so deep into his world that my moral compass was breaking. "Show me the rest," I said. He took me through more levels of the complex. A garage filled with armored vehicles. Living quarters for men who needed to stay underground for security reasons. Medical facilities staffed with doctors who treated gunshot wounds without asking questions. Finally, we reached the bottom level. "This is where we handle internal problems," Dante said, opening a reinforced door. The room beyond was stark and clinical. A chair with restraints sat in the center, surrounded by tools I didn't want to identify. "Interrogation?" I asked. "Sometimes. Other times, justice. Torture, when necessary to protect what's mine." I stared at the room, trying to reconcile the man who'd held me so gently with someone who used this place. "Have you ... I couldn't finish the question. "Yes," he said simply. "I've used this room. I've done things here that would give you nightmares. Why are you showing me this?" "Because if we're going to be together, you need to know exactly who I am. What I'm capable of. What this life really means." I turned away from the room and looked at him. He was watching me carefully, and I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he was preparing for my rejection. "I need air," I said. He nodded and led me back to the elevator. We rode to the top floor in silence, and he took me out onto a private terrace that overlooked the city. "I know it's a lot," he said. "It's everything I expected and somehow worse than I imagined." "Sarah." "But," I said, cutting him off, "I also saw the way you took care of those wounded men. The way your people look at you with respect instead of fear. The way you run a business empire that employs hundreds of people. Does that balance out the rest?" "I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to." He moved closer, hope flickering in his dark eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not running away. It means I want to understand how someone can be both things, gentle and violent, caring and ruthless. It means you're willing to try?" I looked out at the city spread below us, thinking about my old life and the new one I was being offered. About safety and danger, about love and fear, about the difference between existing and truly living. "It means I'm willing to try," I said. He moved behind me, his hands coming to rest on my shoulders. "I'll never lie to you about who I am or what I do," he said. "But I swear to you that I'll never let that darkness touch you directly. What if it changes me anyway? Then we'll face that together." I leaned back against his chest, feeling the solid warmth of him behind me. "Dante?" "Mom, I think I'm falling in love with you. All of you. The good and the bad and the complicated." His arms tightened around me. "Ti amo, Sarah. I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. Even though I'm just a photographer who got in the way of some bullets? Especially because you're a woman brave enough to save a stranger and strong enough to love a monster. You're not a monster." "No?" I turned in his arms to face him. "You're a man who does what he has to do to protect the people he cares about. That doesn't make you a monster. That makes you dangerous to your enemies and precious to your family. Which one are you?" "I think I'm your family now." He kissed me then, soft and desperate and full of promise. Standing on that terrace high above the city, I felt the last of my old life slip away and a new one begin. When we broke apart, I was breathless and dizzy and completely certain that I was making the right choice. "Take me home," I said. "Home? Your home." "Our home. Whatever this is, I want to be part of it." The smile that spread across his face was brilliant and relieved and full of love. "Come on then, Mrs. Romano." "We're not married. Yet," he said, and I felt my heart skip a beat. "Yet," I agreed. As we rode the elevator back down to his operations center, I thought about the future stretching out ahead of us. It wouldn't be simple or safe or anything like what I planned for my life, but it would be ours. Dante had one more meeting to finish before we could leave, so I waited in his legitimate office, looking through the photography portfolio Elena had asked someone to bring from my apartment. My old work looked different now, somehow smaller and sadder than I remembered. When Dante returned, he found me sitting on the couch with the portfolio spread across the coffee table. "Regrets?" he asked. "The opposite. I was looking at what I used to do, and all I can think about is what I could create now. With the resources you're offering, with the access to interesting subjects, with the security to take risks. What kind of risks? Artistic ones. Personal projects. Things I was always too afraid to try because I couldn't afford to fail." He sat beside me, looking at the images I'd laid out. These are beautiful, Sarah, but you're right, they're safe. I want to photograph you, I said suddenly. Your world. Not for publication, just for us. The real you, not the public face. The darkness, too? Especially the darkness. Light and shadow, that's what makes a photograph interesting. He was quiet for a moment, studying my face. You're not the same woman I met in that alley, he said. No, I'm not. Is that bad? It's extraordinary. We spent the ride home planning. I would move my few belongings from my apartment to the mansion. Dante would introduce me properly to the extended family and business associates who formed the backbone of his organization. I would start working on a private project documenting the Romano family, not the criminal enterprise, but the people who made up this strange, violent, loyal clan. There are rules, Dante said as we pulled through the gates of the estate. For your safety and the safety of everyone else. What kind of rules? You don't go anywhere alone. You don't discuss family business with outsiders ever. You don't question orders when it comes to security matters. And in exchange, you're part of the family. Protected, provided for, respected. My equal in everything except matters of business safety. Your equal? My partner. In life, in love, in everything that matters. That night, Elena hosted a formal dinner to welcome me into the family. The dining room was full of Romano relatives and associates, and I was introduced to more people than I could hope to remember. But they all treated me with warmth and respect that felt genuine. After dinner, Dante found me on the terrace where we'd had our first real conversation. No second thoughts? He asked. None. Good, because I have something for you. He handed me a small velvet box, and my heart stopped. Dante, it's not what you think. Not yet. I opened the box to find a delicate gold chain with a small pendant, a camera surrounded by thorns. It's beautiful, I said. It represents you, he explained as he fastened it around my neck. Beautiful and artistic, but protected by thorns. Strong enough to survive in my world without losing what makes you special. I love it. I love you. I love you too. We stood there in the moonlight and I thought about how much my life had changed in just a few days. I'd lost everything I thought I wanted and found everything I never knew I needed. What happens now? I asked. Now we build a life together. We face whatever comes as a team. We love each other despite the dangers and complications. And my photography? You document our world. You show the beauty and the brutality, the love and the loyalty. You tell our story in a way no one else ever has. Our story? The story of a mafia boss and the photographer who saved his life and changed his heart. I thought about that story, our story, and all the ways it could end. Some of them were dark, some were dangerous, but all of them were ours. I can live with that story, I said. Good, he said, pulling me closer. Because it's just the beginning. As he kissed me under the stars, I felt the last of my old fears fade away. This was my life now, complicated and dangerous and absolutely perfect. I was Sarah Romano now, even if the name wasn't official yet. I was part of a family that would kill to protect me and die to defend me. I was in love with a man who was both gentle and ruthless, who could order someone's death and then hold me like I was made of spun glass. It should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like coming home. 3 months later, I was editing photos in my studio when Dante appeared in the doorway. I'd been working on a series capturing the everyday moments of our unusual family. Elena cooking Sunday dinner, Marco teaching his young nephew to play chess, Sal working in his garden behind the house. How's the project coming? Dante asked, looking over my shoulder at the images on my computer screen. Better than I hoped. These people, your family, they're not what the world thinks they are. No, they're not monsters. They're just people who've chosen to live by different rules. He was quiet for a moment, his hand warm on my shoulder. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Something in his tone made me turn around to face him. What's wrong? The feds are closing in. There's going to be an indictment soon. My heart sank. How soon? Weeks, maybe days. What does that mean for us? It means I might have to go away for a while. Prison, if they can make the charges stick. How long is a while? Could be years, Sarah. Could be decades. I stared at him, processing what he was telling me. After everything we've been through, everything we built together, we might be torn apart by something as mundane as federal prosecutors. I won't ask you to wait, he said. That wouldn't be fair. You won't ask, but what do you want? I want to marry you? Tomorrow, if you'll have me. I want to know that whatever happens, you're mine and I'm yours, Dante. I want to give you my name and all the protection that comes with it. I want to know that my family will take care of you if something happens to me. And I want to know that when you're sitting in whatever cell they put you in, you'll remember that someone loves you completely, unconditionally, forever. The intensity in his voice took my breath away. Is that a proposal? I asked. It's a promise. The proposal comes next. He got down on one knee right there in my photography studio, pulling a ring box from his jacket pocket. Sarah Matthews, he said, you saved my life in that alley, but more than that, you saved my soul. You made me want to be worthy of your love. Will you marry me? The ring was perfect, a classic solitaire diamond that caught the light and threw it back in brilliant sparks. But it wasn't the ring that made me say yes. It was the look in his eyes, the vulnerability and hope and absolute devotion I saw there. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto my finger with hands that were surprisingly steady, then stood and kissed me with a passion that made my knees weak. Tomorrow? He asked when we broke apart. Tomorrow, I agreed. We were married the next evening in the garden behind the house with Elena as my matron of honor and the entire Romano family as witnesses. Dante wore a black tuxedo that made him look like a movie star, and I wore a simple white dress that Elena had somehow procured in less than 24 hours. Father DeMarco, the family priest, performed the ceremony in a mixture of English and Italian that made me cry happy tears. When Dante slipped the wedding band onto my finger, his hands were shaking. Ti amo, mia moglie, he whispered as he kissed me. I love you too, my husband. The reception was small but perfect. We danced to Frank Sinatra under string lights while the family celebrated around us. For a few hours, I forgot about federal indictments and the uncertain future ahead of us. Mrs. Romano, Dante said as we swayed to the music. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with it now. For better or worse, I'm afraid it might be mostly worse for a while. Then we'll face it together. 2 days later, the FBI raided the downtown office building. Dante surrendered himself rather than risk a violent confrontation that might endanger his family. I watched from the courthouse steps as they led him away in handcuffs and felt a part of my heart break. But I didn't cry. Not then. I waited until I was alone in our bedroom, the master suite he'd moved into after our wedding, before I let the tears come. On the bedside table sat a letter he'd left for me, and I read it through blurry eyes. Asterisk, my dear Sarah, asterisk, asterisk, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I don't know for how long, but I need you to know some things while I still can. Asterisk, asterisk, first, that I love you more than life itself. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, and marrying you was the greatest privilege of my existence. Asterisk, asterisk, second, that you are not alone. Marco will handle family business, but Elena will handle everything else. Let her take care of you the way I would if I were there. Asterisk, asterisk, third, that I don't regret anything except the timing. I would do it all again, the violence, the choices, the risks if it meant finding you in the end. Asterisk, asterisk, fourth, that whatever happens in the trial, whatever the sentence, I will come back to you. Not even the federal government is strong enough to keep me away from my wife forever. Asterisk, asterisk, take care of yourself, Bella. Document our story. Show the world who we really are. Asterisk, asterisk, oh my love, always asterisk, asterisk, Dante asterisk. I held that letter against my chest and made a promise to myself and to him. I would wait. I would document our story. I would be worthy of the love he'd given me. The trial lasted 8 months. I attended every day, sitting in the front row where Dante could see me. The media called me the mafia wife, but I didn't care. I was his wife, and I was proud of it. When the verdict came, guilty on racketeering charges, 20 years with the possibility of parole in 10, I still didn't cry in public. I smiled at Dante as they led him away, and he mouthed, I love you, before disappearing through the courthouse doors. That was 5 years ago. Now I'm sitting in the visiting room of the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, waiting for my husband to appear behind the reinforced glass. I come here every month, and we talk for hours about everything and nothing. He looks good. Prison has kept him fit and focused. His hair is a little grayer at the temples, but his eyes are the same dark pools of intensity I fell in love with in that Chicago alley. How's the book coming? He asks, as he does every visit. Almost finished, I tell him. The publisher wants to call it Shooting in the Dark, a love story. I like it. Elena thinks you should write the foreword. What would I say? That love is worth any risk. That some people are worth saving even when it costs you everything. He smiles. And for a moment we're not separated by bulletproof glass and federal sentences. We're just two people who found each other in the darkness and chose to build something beautiful despite the odds. 5 more years, he says. 5 more years, I agree. And then? Then we start the next chapter of our story. I press my hand against the glass and he mirrors the gesture from his side. It's as close as we can get to touching, but it's enough. TMO Miyamogli, I love you too, always. When visiting hours are over, I drive back to Chicago with the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The Romano family is still there, still taking care of me like I'm blood. Elena is teaching me to cook authentic Italian food. Marco brings me security updates I don't really want to hear. The newer members of the family treat me with reverence reserved for saints. I'm Dante Romano's wife. I am the woman who saved the wrong mafia boss and found the right man. In 5 years, he'll come home to me. We'll grow old together in that beautiful house with its gardens and secrets. We'll travel to Italy and see the places his grandparents talked about. We'll take photographs together and document the next phase of our impossible love story. Until then, I wait. I work. I love him from a distance and trust in the promise he made in that prison letter, that nothing, not even the federal government, is strong enough to keep us apart forever. Some love stories have simple endings. Ours has had complications from the very beginning. But it's ours and it's real and it's worth every minute of waiting.